your goals, right? That's the destination. The plan is the GPS to that destination. It's hard to give up on something when you have a clear and concise blueprint on it.
Welcome back to the Minority Mind Podcast, and I'm here today with Coach King. I want you guys to really listen to this episode because he's going to drop a lot of valuable gems. I know he is. So listen into this episode. And this episode is brought to you by Minority Mind Network, a self-development ecosystem where people who value growth in the areas of faith, family, fitness, and finances come together to grow personally and professionally. But without further ado, Coach King, Zion, man, I appreciate you being a guest on this episode, man.
Man, appreciate you having me, bro. Absolutely, man. I love what you do. I love how you move. And as we were talking before this episode, started recording, what we do, we have a mutual respect and we have a mutual love for what we do, man. So what we're doing is natural and organic. So I'm really just honored to be on your show, man. I definitely appreciate you.
Man, I appreciate that, brother. But I really want to give them a feel of who you are, man. This is to highlight you, highlight how you think, how you've navigated life so far, man. So if someone was to ask who is Zion, what does Zion stand for? Coach King, can you give like a synopsis, who you are, what you stand for, what you do?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So I like to just go by being your brother, but a little bit about my background. I have a background in education. So I graduated from Kentucky State University, and I immediately started teaching. I started with kindergarten as an assistant teacher, and then from Kentucky, I moved to Chicago, started teaching on the South Side, taught fourth grade science and math, then went on to teach out west at North Lawndale. I taught freshman African-American history, and then most recently, I was at the University of Illinois, Chicago, as a program advisor. And so now I'm a self-development coach, helping people get their life in order by creating goals, one, but number two, creating a solid action plan to reach those goals. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that, man. Solid action plan is key. But, being a self-development coach or a coach, a mentor, anything in that space, a lot of it stems from personally having a connection to that field. Like, what do you think personally draw you to becoming a personal development coach for youth, young adults, professionals looking to set those goals and clearly have a plan to achieve them?
Man, I would say it really started when I went to college. So I graduated in 2017. And I was on a high, right? After you graduate, everything's going good. Everybody, outside doing their thing. You celebrating graduation because you just on a high. You ready to be done with school, and it finally happened. But 3 days after I graduated, my brother was murdered, right? So I graduated June 1st, 2017. He got murdered the morning of June 4th, 2017. So I went to college extremely depressed, mad. Didn't want to, fool with nobody, didn't want to go out. So I would just go to class, go to the caf, go to the computer lab, go back to my room. Go to class, computer lab, go to the caf, go to my room. And it was kind of like a, repetitive schedule. But eventually I had told myself, like, if I don't dig deep within myself and figure out my life, I'm just going to be just like him. Not in the sense that I was going to get into the same circumstances as him, but the scripture says, without a vision, you'll perish. He didn't really have a vision, so he started attaching himself to many things that maybe he shouldn't have been involved with. And so I told myself, if I didn't discover within myself a purpose, I would start miscellaneously moving around, attaching myself to things. So it was then in college when I started developing a purpose for myself. And then I started throwing, events on campus because, I would watch Eric Thomas. And I was like, man, what he's doing, I feel like I can do that too. And so I knew I thought a little different. And, I saw people having problems in their own personal life. I saw how people complained about stuff on campus. And we always looked outward for somebody on campus, organization-wise to make a change. But I said, why don't I just start throwing my own events to solve their problem, help them solve their problem? So man, one semester I had an event called Getting Out the Traditional Way of Thinking. Part one was for all males. where we taught, how to get your goals in order. And then my line brother, he taught financial literacy. Then the following semester, we had getting out the traditional way of thinking part 2. It was for all females. Same thing. And I was like, okay, I can probably turn this into a profession. So that's when I saw like the potential that I could really be a self-development coach.
That's amazing, man. Not looking outward for those resources, but actually just creating it, being the change in the community you want to see, or the area you want to see. That's huge, man. And you talked about the catalyst being the loss of your brother. That's huge. A lot of people I talk to, loss has been something that catapulted them to the success that they actually achieve, which is funny, or, not necessarily funny, but interesting to say the least, considering that a lot of people would use the exact same catalyst as a reason to go down a negative path. What do you think made you choose to not use loss as an excuse, but loss as what empowered you as your platform to grow? What you think different mindset there?
Right. I would say, bro, like, because I was obviously hurt once it happened. And, his family came deep to the funeral. And, they wanted blood with who did it, who was responsible for doing it. And I was in that mindset for a while after it happened. But then I started accepting reality. And once I started accepting reality, I understood this already happened. It's not going to change. Whether I move in a negative light or I move in a positive light, he's gone. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't easy to accept. But once I really came to grips with he's not coming back, I had to then make a decision. Do I want to use this and be an example for people, number 1, and 2, make his name live on? Or do I want to crawl myself up in a ball and just lay down, be depressed, flunk out of college, right? And screw up my life, my future, the potential family that I may create one day. Do I want to go down that path, or do I want to use that as a lesson and start to create something positive for myself? So it was really me seeing the situation at hand and look in both directions. It could be this way or it could be that way. And I think that's when I was like, hey, whatever I do, he's not going to come back. I might as well make the best out of the situation.
That's huge. I mean, especially talking about, the realization that, no matter what you do, the situation itself, the loss cannot be changed itself. A lot of times humans at a core level, we have a want for fairness. We have a want for tit for tat. And, if that can be a really strong desire, it puts people in positions where they end up making a lot of mistakes in life because they expect it to be one-to-one fair, But as we know, as we live life and we see situations, we learn sometimes some games feel rigged against you. Some parts of life feel rigged against you to where you have to work 4 times as hard to get the same amount somebody else got. Or you have to understand that everything isn't tit for tat. If we went tit for tat in every situation, then a lot of us wouldn't be here. So, that's a huge realization that when I'm working with youth, especially in areas that have a high crime rate, area where, there are people that instead of handling it professionally, they will handle it a certain type of way. I have to really talk about, hey man, I understand it because I've been there. I was a hothead growing up. I know what it's like to just have anger and just want to do something that you in one part of your brain is like, man, I probably shouldn't do it. But in the other part, it's like you so riled up in that moment. So yeah, it's a huge thing talking about understanding that you can't get it back. And how do you move forward from here?
Man, and you know what's crazy? It's funny that you say that because when I was working at the University of Illinois, I worked for a federally funded program. And this particular program serviced, low-income students, first-generation students, and students with documented disabilities. And when we would come up with things to help those different demographics, people would often say we're helping to serve disadvantaged students. And I like to challenge that because I'm like, man, me being a first generation student, one person may look at that as a disadvantage, but somebody else, they may use that as fuel to go harder in school versus the person that just had it, planned out for them. And their parents had the money to send them to school for 4 hours. So it's kind of like looking at that hourglass either half empty or half full, right? It's all perception. You could take something that happens in your life and it can make you be depressed and give up. And then somebody else can take that same situation and go make some gold out of it. We see it all the time with professional athletes. Fatherless athletes, right? Fatherless NFL players, right? They may go through traumatic circumstances and they go out or they go through that pain and they end up in NFL or they end up in the NBA. Then you had that same person, or you had that person with the same scenario, rather, they in the streets, right? Causing mayhem. It's all about perception. That's how I see it.
Yeah, a lot of life is about perception. I mean, and that brings up a thing I was thinking about a lot is just news media. The big reason why this podcast even exists is I want a positive platform for young adults, professionals, youth who want something to aspire to be like, to have someone to learn from, someone's situation to really get into. And obviously I benefit from having good conversations with good people. I mean, I love this for that reason. But media can do a poor representation, honestly, of showing all the different outcomes and possibilities that are possible when you come from different environments. I would say, for example, as a young adult, I know the biggest thing that I looked up to was entertainment. Entertainment was huge, from comedy to music to sports. Like, these entertainment industries are so publicized and media-sized that you see that. But a lot of times you don't get the chance to really hear about the guy who grew up in a tough situation but ended up getting a 6-figure job and taking care of his family, pushing his family forward, making sure that the generational curses that plagued his family don't get to his kids and his children's children. So those are the stories I like to highlight. And with that being said, I want to ask you, what is it like for you growing up? Like, just blanket statement of growing up. Was it easy? What background do you come from to where you get instilled some of these lessons that you've instilled in yourself and the others you mentor or coach?
Yeah, bro, that's good, man. For me, it was pretty normal, right? Played sports, played soccer, played basketball, little league, played football, played AAU basketball. But to be honest with you, bro, I love to get in trouble. I had both parents in the household, right? And I'm going somewhere with that. But, I would love to just hang around those that was getting into stuff, because I was kind of like that loyal guy that was just always down for the count, right? And I would hang with different friend groups because I was the funny guy, the bad, little short friend that was just down to do whatever, right? So if we go into the store and we sneaking some food and putting it in our pants, or we going to McDonald's and we finessing something out of there, like, I was that type of person doing it with my friends, but I really had no reason to. You would see me in school, class clown, knowing I would get my butt whooped at home for acting out how I would act out, but it was just attractive to me, right? But looking back on it now, even though I had both parents in the household, bro, my parents was always arguing. I thought it was a normal life growing up, but a lot of part of my, domestic life, if you will, it was dysfunctional. You get what I'm saying? Not to the most extreme extent, but it was dysfunctional. And that messed with me psychologically as I got older. Right. So my dad, he drank a lot when I was younger. And it's not to throw him under the bus, but he drank a lot, and so my mom and my pops would argue about that a lot, because my mom's father passed away from cirrhosis of the liver. Right. And so they would go at it. Right. And, they had other problems I won't really get into, but they would argue a lot about a lot of various things. And so I would hear that and just want to go run and play outside with my friends. Not noticing how that would affect me in my every move, because I'm just thinking it's normal life. But that was kind of how it was when I was younger. 7th grade, I ended up getting kicked out of public school and I got sent to alternative school. And that's when I met my brother, my best friend, Rambo, the one that passed away after I graduated high school. And, I was just at that bad school. You have everybody in the township, that like to fight, misbehave, all that stuff. But once I got to high school, I was clowning a little bit, and then eventually got my act together. Because, like when you in your sophomore, junior, senior year of high school and you still clowning, it's like, for what? So for me, I had a pretty normal life, but I had a lot of instances where things that happened ended up affecting me later, and I didn't even see it as that as I was growing up.
That's a huge thing, and I appreciate you being transparent with that, because I have a very similar story, and I don't always, get a chance to talk about it, but very similar story in the same sense that, like, it's a blessing to have a household with two parents, but you have to understand too that sometimes the dysfunction in the home will push you into dysfunction out of the home, because that's what you're used to seeing and navigating through.
Yep.
So with me, there's pros and cons to everything. With being a part of certain dysfunctions, it made me comfortable understanding that all people have problems, so I can go talk to people in certain different situations. I don't care where you come from, what background you come from. I don't care what you've been through. I understand that you a human at the end of the day. You just like me. You just like anybody I've ever interacted with, no matter what your flaws are. So that builds up something that allows me to navigate certain environments better. But also, it is huge. Everybody that I've ever met has some sort of dysfunction in the family. In the family, there's always something that could be better. Now, I'm not saying that as a blanket statement for everybody, but for the most part, I have heard people talk about that fighting was annoying, the things of that nature, and with me working in the addiction field with counseling and stuff like that too, you really see that can literally break families. So I have been in a place where I really encourage young people figure out how to cope with day-to-day life without necessarily taking it down a route that can potentially hurt your future.
Yeah, man. And I would say, man, that's a beautiful point, because like when I was teaching, like you dealing with so many students, which means you're dealing with so many family dynamics, different family dynamics at that. And I would say to those, you got to control the controllables. You get what I'm saying? So you may not per se be able to control your parents' dynamic. You're not in their marriage. But you can control how that affects you and how you move from how that affects you. You get what I'm saying? So, yes, you're right. We do have, and it's no coincidence, we do have a lot of dysfunctional upbringings in the Black community when it comes to our household, which is not an accident. But a lot of us really haven't been given the tools, right, or knowledge to learn how to process these different dynamics that we grow under, and how we can control how we react to these dysfunctional or negative, if you will, upbringings that we have, because we just see the cycle and we react to the cycle, but we don't know what, how more of control we could take place, or we can take in that actual dynamic, right? We don't have to just be reactive to it, right? We can see it, and you could be like, oh man, my mom and dad finna go out and get, what can I do different this time to make sure it don't affect me in this way, versus having it weigh on you so hard to the point where it creates a different person that you really don't even want to be.
That's huge, and having support is always a good thing as well, especially if you can find it outside of the home. I mean, the biggest thing with me, I always talk about it in my speeches, my keynote speech. I always talk about my grandmother. My grandmother was that, like, when I used to go over to my grandma's house, I used to love it. Wasn't no arguing. It was just me and my grandma watching some old TV show like Family Feud and stuff like that. So I talk about it all the time. Having some resource, some outlet is always good too, because those can be the things that take you from needing like to go be alone in your room versus I'm gonna go ahead and go talk to my grandma to go chill with her all day over the house. So that's huge. But I want to talk about something that's a huge part of that is like self-awareness. The having the mindset to look outside of yourself and the opportunities that you have, because other people will think that, like, you look at some of the dysfunction and you're like, oh man, everybody household like that. But somebody got to figure it out. Somebody has a different dynamic. Somebody has a different way of navigating things to where it's more helpful, for their situation. What do you think would really be a 360 moment for people that allows them to take a different perspective in their life, realize that things are possible outside of their current circumstances?
Yeah, man. Just you have to learn, right? Then again, how you talked about having a support system. There has to be, it takes a man to show a man how to be a man. You get what I'm saying? So first you have to know that it's possible, right, to reach your fullest potential. right? You have to know, and this is what I love doing. This is what I spend majority of my time doing, showing people that you can put yourself on, you can redesign yourself, you can redesign your whole future no matter what you're going through right now. But first, you have to see that it's possible, number one, and two, understand that you have full power to not only control your atmosphere around you, but set things in motion, right, for the future that will bring you what you want, right? Hence why I come up with helping people how to create goals and plans for those goals, right? So I would say, man, in a nutshell, first, learning that it's possible. It's good to say, man, know that you have control over everything and that you have power over everything. But how do I know that? Somebody either has to tell me, I have to read it, I have to become aware of that, knowing that it's possible to unlock another chamber in me, and then two, doing everything in your power to bring that into fruition. Because honestly, it don't matter what we go through, bro. You can literally redesign your life today. You can literally redesign your life. If I get in a car accident, God forbid, today, after I heal from my car accident, I can redesign how I want my life to look regardless of that car accident happening. You know what I'm saying? Most people will say a car accident happened. You suffered a traumatic event. There's no way you can go. You still got life to live. Right? So when we think about things that we've been through, no matter what it is, whether it's traumatic incidents, trauma in the household, right? Substance abuse, whatever the case may be, you have to know that that's only your current circumstance, because that's what you're not choosing, but that's what you're currently dealing with right now. You get what I'm saying? But if you can find a way to reach within yourself and dig yourself out of that hole, you can change your reality as if that thing never happened.
That's huge, man. That's huge. And you hit on something big when you talked about you have to be told sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's big because I do believe that certain families don't necessarily pour into their children the way other families do.
Yeah.
Like, having strict parents, like me growing up on the south side of Chicago, my parents wouldn't even let me off the block. If they couldn't see me, I wasn't going. If they didn't know who the parents was, I wasn't hanging with them. If they didn't, like the parents, then they weren't coming to my birthday party, little stuff like that.
Right.
And they were strict. They kept me sheltered because they knew that if you get into the wrong environments, you get around the wrong people, you can end up in bad situations. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I will say, no matter how bad things were, the one thing my family did, even my grandparents to my parents, the biggest thing they instilled in me is belief in myself that I can do anything. Like the biggest thing they always told me, my dad always told me growing up, your job is to do better than me.
Yep.
Period. It was no like, man, you suck at this or like, why you doing that? You better get better grades in school. You bad at that. It was always, the standard is that you do better than me.
Yep.
It was always that belief that you're going to do better than me. It wasn't even you can't. It was you're going to do better than me. It was that belief that allowed me to go navigate situations with a level of confidence, a level of capability that some people don't get. Because what I've noticed is some parents, man, they don't instill a lot into their kids. They don't instill the belief. They don't sometimes force a kid to do something that's better for them in their best interest, because they don't believe in that.
Yeah.
And I've noticed it will take away from a kid's work ethic when some of the most important things in the world that you may not feel like doing, your parents don't even tell you to do. So now you don't have the self-discipline to realize that it was never nurtured to put into you that, yeah, you might not be good at this now, but you can be.
Yep.
Like, that's a huge thing with recognizing those opportunities is how we're nurtured, how we're raised. So you do need somebody to tell you. That's why I like what we do. We can talk to young adults, kids in the schools, or just young professionals in general, and say, hey, like, bro, what do you mean you can't do that, or you will do that? You're gonna do it. You have the resources. Why you gonna, don't be afraid to suck at something that you just started. Like, I don't know why that's such a big thing, but I never went into anything thinking I was gonna be perfect at it to begin with. But I think it holds us back a lot of the times, because the pain and the discipline of doing something despite you not being good at it is something that a lot of people can't get over today.
And I would say, bro, like, in terms of somebody being there to tell you or show you the way, with all due respect, sometimes it can't be your parents. And a lot of times it's not our parents, because some of our parents don't know. So how can you teach that what you do not know? So it may take you getting a mentor. It may take you enrolling in a program, right? My sister, bro, my oldest sister, she had me do a couple mentoring programs when I was younger, right? I was forced to do it, but those black men taught me things, right? And exposed me to so much different stuff that not that my parents couldn't show me, but didn't show me, right? They instilled stuff in me that not that my parents couldn't instill in me, but just didn't instill in me, right? For whatever reason. So sometimes it's going to take somebody or something, because even if you read a book, someone wrote that book. Even if you watch a podcast or you see a quote somewhere, a human being came up with that, right? So it does take somebody, right? And that person may not be your parents. Again, why? Because they may have not, for no ill intentions, but they may just not have had the capacity to teach that which they do not know. And so it takes for a peer, a mentor, or a coach, right, to come swoop you up and show you what you can obtain.
Man, that's huge. And I love hearing that, because the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is realize that you can learn from anybody.
Yep.
I was taught not to judge people. I've never looked at somebody who was homeless and thought of them differently than somebody who had the biggest house on the block. I've never looked to judge people in that way, because there's something I can learn from everybody. Like, there's always, and the biggest thing with parents too is like you said, it's never no ill intent. You may not have learned something from your parents, not because of their fault, but understand that your parents worked through their own generational curses to bring something, to block something you don't even realize. I think a lot of us forget on the mental side of things. Our parents broke their own generational curses and blocked us from harm that we don't even realize because we never experienced it. Something that they experienced that they was like, no, it stops with me. And just because they have their own issues that progress, because we all learning, we all living life for the first time, just because that affected you doesn't mean that they bad people. Like that's what I love to say, especially in our community, man. Like, it's so many parents doing their best that I just falling short, because we all fall short, and you may fall short in one way that I may not fall short in, and I may fall short in a way that you might not fall short in. But you seeing both sides of the coin is huge. The good with the bad, understanding how things progress is huge. It can be really, for certain people, it can be very enlightening and give them a new sense of hope that, sometimes just getting over your pain can do a lot for you to really care about your future and believe in it. So that's huge, man.
Man, if I can, just real quick to that point, man, that's why it's so important to study everything, right? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, man, everybody that you encounter, everybody that you meet is your superior. You know something they don't know, and they know something that you don't know. So in every encounter, we must have humility. We must be able to learn from everybody. Anybody and anything can teach you something, and you can learn from it if you just are receptive to learning.
Man, that's huge. Talking about, I love where we just ended there, because that's going to take me into habits. Because like you said, you can learn from anybody. And a lot of the habits that I picked up growing up, learning, before I bought my first rental property and things like that, before I learned, investing from some people, I learned that from somebody outside of my family, just somebody I reached out to, saw was doing good things, and they poured into me and taught me something that I didn't know. I think humility goes a long way with that, because sometimes people are just looking to give to someone who will humble themselves and listen and execute. And especially in the mentoring game, we should know, at least I've had great mentors tell me that mentoring is a numbers game, because everybody that you give the information will not act on it.
Oh, wow.
And and my mentor tells me all the time, he props me up in any room I walk into, and where he's like, he met me when he was 17 years old. I brought him to one of my 24 unit buildings I was buying, and ever since then, he got his first property before he was 20 years old, and blah blah. Like he brags on me, because he really says, he said, I've told the same thing to a lot of people, but execution and the humility to listen and just do is something that a lot of people are struggling with. So what is your take on the things you've learned from people? Maybe some habits, like what are some things that you learned, like skill or habit wise, from people that really have helped you?
Man, I would say I study those that, are practicing what they preach. You know, it's hard for somebody to teach you how to become a millionaire and they not a millionaire themselves. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And we see that a lot of times in school system. You have your teachers telling you to do X, Y, and Z, and you'll get a job and live a good life, and they not even doing that. So why do I follow that blueprint? But that's another story for another day. But, you know, for me, I would just say, you know, bro, I really look up to Eric Thomas a lot, you know, because one, his journey, but he's actually living, you know, what he talks. Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that's my example. You know, he's a man of his actions reflect what he says. You get what I'm saying? So in terms of wisdom, it's really just that execution part that I've learned, because in all of the principles that we learn, whether it's staying disciplined, right? Surrounding yourself with good people, right? Having a positive mindset, coming up with a daily routine and a schedule, all the self-development principles that we learn in different aspects of life all have an underlying theme, and that's execution. Because all of those are good principles, but if you just think it and you hear it and you cheer and it sounds good and you try it out for a day or two, you may think it's cool, but if you don't really execute on any of those things, you won't bring into fruition or grow that bad habit or turn that bad habit into a good habit unless you execute. So whether it comes from me watching, you know, Eric Thomas, how to really, you know, develop the business side of speaking, or how do you develop the storytelling part of speaking, whatever the case may be, from whatever expert, I think the biggest thing that I attach myself to is I study how people execute. I study how people execute, because that's where I think you soak up the most game. A lot of stuff sounds cool, but if you're not seeing the practical way how people executed certain principles, then it's just all cute, bro. It's just all cute.
Yeah, man, that's real valuable when it comes down to actually executing, you know, taking the information. I talked about, you know, some of the fundamental transitions when it comes to success in anything that you do. I start with curiosity, because being curious about the possibilities in life and having that consciousness to be aware of those possibilities starts the process, which leads to the creative thinking. Mm-hmm. Once you're aware and you're curious about life and opportunities, you get creative on maybe how can these opportunities apply to my life, or how can I get there? And from creativity breeds execution.
Yep.
Because once you aware of the opportunities and you creative enough to apply them to your own situation, and then you get to the position where you understand the only thing stopping me from putting this opportunity into my life is the action.
Yep.
That right there is the missing piece to a lot of people's situation. The missing piece is the execution.
Man, bro, and that's literally, I use an action plan as a tool to reach my goals, right? An action plan is the tool that anybody should use to reach their goals, right? Because everybody, like you said, it starts out as curiosity, right? Everybody has a thought. And when you ponder over that thought long enough, it then becomes an idea. Then once you have that idea, you may dream about it when you go to sleep. You may wish it. You may desire it, right? You have that urge, right? Because now you've been exposed to it. The curiosity seeps in. And now the only thing that's stopping you from actually and bringing it into life is that action. So you need an action plan for those actions.
Man, that's huge. And I love that. I take action plans serious. I'm actually creating a new one based on this book I just read. Mm-hmm. It's one I recommend to you as well. So I'm gonna actually let you know about that. It's called Book More Business. It's a book about speaking. Okay. So definitely I recommend that book to you. But execution is a huge thing, and that's one of like the bigger habits that a lot of people struggle with. Because it's possible to be too curious too, and you get sidetracked by life. You can be too curious and get sidetracked by life coming up, and you wanting to accomplish this, now you want to do that, and then you can be all over the place. And I've been there. Be honest, I've been there, man. Just curious about life. So I some things, if you just focus on one thing and stay curious about that one thing for long enough, and execute on that one thing for long enough, it can become way bigger than if you are too sidetracked. And that's also something you'll see with some people, especially when I'm coaching young professionals, like people that want to be entrepreneurs. A lot of times we can be running around like a chicken with a head cut off, like just trying to, oh, man, this is cool. Let's add this to this. But it's like, if we just focus in on that one thing and keep executing on that only, that'll be way bigger than if we just diversify too much.
And even that point, bro, why do we do that? Right? If you have a true love for something, right? If you're purpose driven for something, you're gonna lock in on that particular thing. And it may be something for this 6 months, then something for the next 6 months. Or you may got to stay down on this one assignment for this 3 to 4 months or this quarter, and then try something else that you have a burning desire for the next 3 to 4 months or the next quarter. However, desire feeds the will. So if you have a strong enough desire to see something be brought into fruition, that's going to fuel the willpower to take actionable steps, right? And follow through with that thing that you desire, bro. So you may see somebody, I may see somebody that is going here, then they going here, then they going, did their heart really desire it? Or did it just seem cool? They wanted the accolades that came with it, right? Or it may sound like a good idea, the glitz and glamour of having that looked attractive to them, but was it really truly a desire in your heart? And I think that's what separates a lot of people that execute on those thoughts because they are passion driven from those that see things, they talk about it, they post about it, they claim that they're about to manifest it, and then they forget about it next week. Right, because it's not really in them.
That's huge, and I think that really, what you said, having a plan really helps. Also, getting really clear on where you want to be.
Yeah,
like the clearer you are on that goal, the more. Like I look at it like your goal itself is the filter you view life through. Because in life you have a ton of things that you can accomplish. You have the ability to go do whatever you want to. I mean. God willing, I can do whatever I want on this planet because God gave man dominion over this place. And the biggest thing is you need a goal, and bigger than a goal, you need that God-given purpose to go ahead and execute on what you need to do. And the clearer that purpose of that goal is, now you have filters to navigate life through. Without filters, everything. Imagine instead of, when you let's say we talking about going through a place that has some toxic thing in the air, and without the filter of that mask, I can inhale this stuff that's bad for me. And a lot of people are going throughout life with no filter on opportunity, so everything look good. Man. Every object look like it's a new opportunity for them. But really, my goal says that this ain't an opportunity for me. I'm clear on what exactly I want my life to look like, what exactly I want the goal to do for me, because we can have the same goal, but we have the goal for different reasons too. So one way of getting there may be attractive to you, while the way of getting there may not be attractive for me because of what my goal is doing for me. So the clearer we get on that, the less likely we are to be so quick to just switch between different methods and different opportunities and different things that's being marketed to us all the time in the media, which is why I love talking about that, because a lot of the coaching and the mentoring I do is strictly big picture. Like I like doing big picture stuff because I found that the best advice is always broad. The smartest, most wisest people I've ever met have never given me super specific details unless we're talking about how. But when it comes to what and why, the best advice you will ever get is broad, because the smart, wise people understand that no matter what you do, there's always variation in your situation and your circumstance. And once you understand that, you get to the point of seeking wise mentors rather than knowledgeable ones. Yeah. Because knowledgeable people can show you how to do something, but wise ones will show you that discernment, that wisdom, the decision-making skills you need to actually navigate when you build in the life you want to live. So
and that's it. That's it right there, bro. Because I always say, bro, your goals, right? That's the destination. The plan is the GPS to that destination. So going back to what you said, right? We pick up things, put it down. We start things, don't finish them. We start one thing, then go to the next. It's hard to give up on something when you have a clear and concise blueprint on it, right? If you turn left here, turn right here, drive up a half a mile, take a left here, you'll end up at this destination. 9 times out of 10, when you driving on and you see that roadmap, you're not about to just turn around and go home because you see it's only a few turns left until you make it to your destination. The problem is we trying to drive to the destination with no roadmap. So we like, you know what? Forget this. I'm done. I might go to the side of the road, get me a double cheeseburger, right? I'm finna go to the gas station. Actually, you know what? I don't want to run my miles up anymore. I'm about to go back home, right? We start things and quit, right? We don't finish. But I think the clearer the blueprint is, right? The clearer the plan is, you'll start to see, wait, I have a roadmap for my life. I have a roadmap for my goals. I have a roadmap for my vision. I can't quit.
Man, that couldn't even be said better. I have a clip I used from one of the workshops I did. I was doing a goal setting workshop with some young adults, middle schoolers. And I was telling them, the boy came up to me. He was like, man, I want to really help my brother get out of a situation. His brother was in jail. And I was telling him, I'm like, what? He was like, what do I put here? And I'm like, what do you want to do? And he told me, I want to help my brother and, help my family because my brother's in jail. I'm like, look, your goal right now, it's okay for it to be broad. Like, I don't think people realize your goals all started as broad. They come out as superficial desires. Like, I want money. As a kid, when you see that you get stuff that you want because your parents got the money and they buying for it, you like, I want money. You don't really care how you get there, really. You just like, I know I need money. And then throughout life, as you experience things, as you learn different things about the world, the environment you're in, the landscape that we live in life, like we learn how it works. And we're like, you know what? I want money, but I don't want that. I don't want a boss that's telling me what to do and not putting in any work themselves to actually better the service or product that we're offering. I want to make sure that I have time freedom so that I can go home and spend time with my kids so that I can value the most valuable thing in life, which is, creating a life and helping produce another productive member in society. Like, I want to have that freedom. Then our goals get specific. And that's why with building these goals, we got to revisit them too. We got to understand the more life we live, the more clear we get, the better our filter becomes. It's like in the beginning, because we were talking about habits a little bit. I had a video about this, but this concept is powerful. I look at, the start of the 1 + 1 = 3 solution I use in psychology. It starts out with discipline because no habit is ingrained. Like, everything starts out as discipline and a little bit of motivation. It's like we start being motivated, but then the motivation goes, we got to discipline ourselves through it. And over time it turns into the discipline is kind of like an upside down funnel where you got this small little entrance point and then this huge bottom that's supposed to be going towards your goal. The goal's at the bottom. It's like, man, I can barely pour. Like, I can't even put that much energy into it because it's not consistent. It's like, it's not habit. It's not ingrained into you. But, once you take that, consciousness is the other one, and that you take the consciousness of your ability to achieve something, and then you put that little bit of discipline in, it turns into a habit. And a habit, I see it visually as a funnel the right way. The big part, where you can pour so much energy into it and it's going to precisely get to your destination. And that's what happens when you have a goal as well. It's like your filter becomes better. You stop pouring so much energy into things in life that don't serve you or serve the people that you're looking to serve the people around you. Like, a lot of us do things that don't necessarily serve us because without the consciousness and the discipline to turn things into habits, we literally spend all of our time, instead of having our success on autopilot, we're having to discipline or grind and hustle our way through things. When life really, if you want to put things on autopilot, you just build the right habits to go into alignment with your goals.
That's the secret. That's the secret, is getting on that frequency. Because once it's kind of like, bro, you gotta go, like, when you imagine a plane, right? When it's taking off versus when it's finally up in the air and what it has to go through. Once it finally gets up deep enough in the clouds above a certain height, it can just be on autopilot, right? It's cruise control, right? Because it's on that frequency. So that smooth sailing, that frequency that it's on, eventually once you get to the state or city that you're supposed to be, you can land, right? But it was a little shaky getting up to that frequency, right? The problem is we stay in that turbulence. We get sidetracked with one thing, right? And we stay in that difficulty, right? Or that takeoff, if you will, the airplane, right? But just as a plane, once you get up to a certain frequency, it's smooth sailing, and you finally attract your destination by just staying on that plane level. It's the same thing when we want to achieve things, right? It's a frequency we got to get on to attract the things we want, right? Like, And it's so simple, but it's difficult, right? Because we don't start out on that frequency. The hard thing is getting up on that frequency. It's like if you want to get healthy, but keep eating cheeseburgers. How is your blood ever going to get to the point of regulation as in a healthy state that it should be in? How is your body going to do the things that it needs to do in a healthy manner if you keep putting junk food in it? You're not putting your body on that frequency to where you just become healthy, right? It's all frequency, man.
That's huge, and you're right. It is all frequency. That's huge. I love talking about that because when it comes to achieving any goal, it really is gonna come down to getting on the right level. Like, there's a lot of people who want to achieve a goal but aren't willing to really do the things required to achieve it. Like that is the reality. There's like, and I know guys that are honest to themselves about it. Like, I know guys that are not in the best of shape. Like they like in okay shape where they like, man, I could have abs, but man, sometimes
that's me.
It's like, man, but sometimes I just want a cheeseburger and some ice cream at the end of my night. Like, it's like
you taking shots.
Yeah, it's like I'm in good shape, you know, and I'm not perfect either. Like, that's the thing, is like, I don't think people look at life in the correct frame of mind. Like, you can frame things correctly. Like, the most popular perspective is not always the right perspective. Online, if you go online, you see a bunch of young millionaires everywhere. You see a bunch of young millionaires and a bunch of old millionaires saying, I can show you how to do it in record time, in 1 year, in this and that circumstance. But what they don't tell you is that the average millionaire in the United States is usually in their 40s. They don't tell you the average person making six figures is usually in their 30s. They don't tell you that the reality of life is that the most beautiful things in life take time.
Yeah.
You know, I got to wait 9 months to see my kid. You know, I got to wait 18 years to see the little boy or girl that we brought into this world become the upstanding adult that I know that they can be. And the most beautiful things in life always take time, but just because the most popular perspective or the thing that's being marketed to you is that these good things happen quickly. Don't ever limit yourself and say it can't happen, because believe me, it's happening for somebody. But I also don't want everyday people that know their circumstances thinking that just because you see something that looks popular means that that's standard. I want you to have goals that align with what you want to accomplish, but I also want you to understand that you are not less than because the popular, consensus is that everyone's becoming millionaires now. Bro, that's not the case. That is not the case whatsoever. I love seeing young entrepreneurs and myself building a business. Like, bro, I love having real conversations with people and never being fake, because I want people to not look at themselves as less than. Like, you only know the generational curses you working out of right now. Just because somebody online told you they can make you a millionaire in a year don't mean you less than because you still saving up money to go buy, your first car right now. Get enough money for a deposit on your first apartment so you can get out of the toxic environment you grew up in. There's a lot of people I know like that. I know real people. I'm not talking to people on social media. I'm talking to real people going through real situations who are working out of different generational curses that, frankly, a lot of people online ain't been in. Yeah. So we got to give those goals a perspective that allows you to continue going. That's why I look at life as a game, and it's kind of how my curriculum is structured in that way. I want you to feel good about what you're doing, because discipline ain't gonna always feel good, but understand that when you making progress along that route, that's what's gonna feel good. But if you got the wrong perspective, you on the wrong frequency, you tuned in on a millionaire at 20 frequency when you really breaking these generational curses. You in college and graduated when nobody in your family ever did that. You got your home already. You own one property. Nobody in the last 3 generations of your family have owned any. And you looking at your life as a failure, bro. Like, no. Man. The most popular perspective is not always the perfect or the correct perspective for your life.
Man, no, absolutely. I struggle with that myself, bro. I struggle with that myself. It took me to a point where I just had to say, hey, you only get one life. Design it the way that you want it to look. Do things on your terms, not anybody else's terms, and stop looking to the side during your race. right? Just imagine running a race, right? You supposed to pass the baton to your teammate. You keep looking at the person to your left and to your right, and they ended up beating you just because you was worried about everything else versus what's in front of you, right? And so I think that's when we become the most fulfilling, right? Is when we don't try to mimic what the status quo is, or when we don't try to, parallel or match up our lives with those that are billionaires, millionaires, and they the ones that's throwing out these courses, man. Spend $999 is on sale, is usually $2,500, and I can get you to this point in a month, right? We try to compare our lives to those people and they don't understand that they don't have the same circumstances as us. If we just stick to our path, and like you said, notice the progress that we're making, bro, we'll be way better off.
Yeah, and I got two things I wanted to elaborate on there before we kind of move on, because I want to ask you some more questions as well. Like, the biggest thing is, one, understand that I'm not downing mentorship or seeking online education. Not at all. Because, understand that in life, all you have are blind spots at all times. There's a reason why when you drive in a car, they have multiple rear view mirrors. You have your two side mirrors and the rear view, because there are blind spots when you're looking at achieving something in one direction. And seeking mentors and coaching and people like online education, it might be one thing in that online course that gives you the perspective to help you move closer to your goal. So I do believe in online education, because it always is. In mentorship, especially because there's always somebody that's a little bit far ahead of you that you can gauge based on your discernment and their execution and what they're getting results on, that you can learn from. But also understand, and the second thing I wanted to get to is that you are the only one that is going to take your life as serious as it should be taken. Like, you are the only one. Even your parents are only 50% you. You're 50% of your mom, 50% of your dad. You're the only person who is 100% you. With us being the only people who are 100% us, if we don't take our life seriously, nobody's going to take it seriously for us. And the biggest thing I try to get people to realize, especially young people when I'm in the schools, you are in a very beautiful position when you're in middle school, elementary, high school. This is the last times of your life where you will have adults that actually you see day to day that genuinely are looking out for your best interest. Like, they are genuinely, for the most part, they are looking out for your best interest and pouring into you without really expecting much back. As soon as you turn 18, you get out into the real world. This world is reciprocal. You don't think that people are just giving you things to give you things. This world it works on transactions a lot of the time. And my biggest thing is, understand that if you're not going to take your life seriously and you think it's not cool to, be disciplined or not go out with your friends ain't going to take you seriously when something happened and you got an addiction problem and now you need money because you struggling. You were supposed to take your life seriously. That happened because of you not leading your life and becoming the leader of your situation early enough or better enough. So that's huge in what you're saying. They always got to take our life seriously, because no one else is going to do it for us, man. We 100% ourselves. But man, I really want to get into a little bit of faith, man. Like, I think faith is a huge thing. It's the compass that, you use. It's like faith in my curriculum. I put it under mindset because it's kind of like a overarching system. Like, it's like the operating system for your brain and how you see the world. So faith is a huge part of my life, man. I want to know how faith has impacted you in terms of you navigating the world and figuring out how to do that in a way that best serves people and best serves your way of thinking and your faith. Like, how does that go for you? I want to hear more about that.
Man, bro, faith is everything for me, because it was my faith in Allah, God, that got me through the toughest times in my life, right? So, I'm very spiritual, right? I strive my hardest every day to wake up, say my Fajr prayer right before I leave the house and start my day, right? I call on nobody else and rely on nobody else more than Allah, God, right? And I think that has given me a strong backbone when it comes to pursuing these dreams, bro. You know, it's one thing to talk faith, but it's one thing to really have your faith tested, right? And show and prove, right? It's very easy to say walk by faith and not by sight, but when something that you probably don't understand that takes God's wisdom, right? Or for God to give you confirmations later and reveal certain things to you, will you really keep walking by faith and not by sight, what you're seeing, right? Are you going to question God? Are you going to forsake God, right? So everything that faith requires, you know, I strive to uphold. It's not easy at all. But that I believe, I know, you know, my faith is what has made me into the man that I am right now, because I fear nothing but God. And I feel like once you have fear of God and God only, it removes the fear of everything else. You get what I'm saying? And it's like, if I'm seeking God's approval, nobody else's approvals matter. You get what I'm saying? And so if I'm getting confirmed by God, right, whether he'll send me an angel through people, somebody may say something, I just pray for it as God sending me an angel. I may see a confirmation in nature. I may see something throughout my day. That's God confirming what I asked for, right? Those are the things that keep me on my path. And I know it's only my faith that has kept me here.
That's beautiful, man. I think that faith is a underrepresented reason why people are where they are. I think that it doesn't get talked about enough, and people are struggling with faith in scary times in the world, because faith is the belief in things that cannot be seen, and you have to be able to act on faith, or faith doesn't mean anything, because you can think that things are going to get better if you sitting here literally like worried all the time and stressed, your life going to crap because you can't, you know, act by faith, then it can destroy your life. And it's huge when you see people who are not necessarily putting themselves in good positions. Like, they're not putting themselves in good positions. So it's like, it's tough to explain the importance of faith for me. Like, it's such a, you wouldn't be able to start a business without faith, because you're building something that doesn't exist.
Right. It's a balance, right? So there's a quote, man, that a good brother said to me. He said, if you pray, why worry? Right? And why worry if you pray? Right? You defeat the purpose in praying, and then if you're just going to worry about it right after, right? You defeat the purpose of prayer and the power of prayer. And it's like, why would you worry if you prayed? You get what I'm saying? That's where faith comes in, but it's having that balance, right? Like you said, many times, like when we're striving to take that road to become an entrepreneur or just a better version of ourselves, let's just start there. It takes faith. We know the end goal, right? But we're operating from a beginner stage, right? We're starting from seeing it in our head, in our visions, right? But it hasn't manifested yet. However, goes back to the God, right? God created all of this, right? Just think about this for a second. Everything of material that we see once was immaterial. It wasn't here, right? All of the material that we have in this earth or even this universe is composed up of atoms, which is matter. And through the manipulation of matter, you create different realities of life. A couch, a pillow, a phone, a water bottle, a microphone. This is all the same atoms and matter that's in the universe, right? All of this material things that was here was nothingness, though. So the God had to think through that immaterial to produce material. It's the same thing like how with us, just how you said we have dominion, right? Everything that we said God does, humans can do. Think about it. God can create. He can destroy, right? Man can do that, right? God can take nothing and turn it into something. Human beings can do that. So the same way that he's the greatest example, the same way that God created everything that we consider something from nothing, so can we. But it takes that ingredient, faith.
Man, that's huge. And faith without works is dead.
Yep.
That's the biggest one. Faith without works is dead. You have to show your faith. You know, what are you doing that shows your faith? And we just talking about it, you know, that being the foundation we stand on. The faith that we show is by executing on the things that cannot be seen yet. There's going to be situations where you see a vision that nobody else sees.
Yep, say that again.
And that purpose is going to be within you, something you can feel that nobody else can feel. And faith is what keeps you working towards that, rather than believing in only things you can see. The immaterial becomes material through your faith and your diligence and God's provision. That's all that needs to be in that equation for that to work. So that's huge. And I think a lot of people are missing that in action. I think a lot of people think that I do truly believe at the heart, people believe that, but it's selective. It's like selective belief. It's like in this situation, yeah, but in this situation, no. And it selective belief only leaves you incomplete as a person, because you selecting the parts of your life that you allowing God to handle. And God handles all of it regardless, but with you not putting in the work, that's where we're at. We need the work along with the faith.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You good?
Yeah.
Man, no, absolutely, bro. And bro, I thought of something as you was saying that how we're selective. You get what I'm saying? And that's so huge, man, because we are selective. I think sometimes look as mountains or big obstacles to us when something is more minor. We can have no doubt about the thing that's minor, but we'll have doubt about the thing that appears as a mountain, right? It's kind of, you know, you have to have a mustard seed of faith, right? Just a little bit of faith. You can move that mountain. You get what I'm saying? But why? And I always like to think of, you know, God destroyed the concept of impossibility when he created the universe. You get what I'm saying? So everything other than creating the universe is more minute. Nothing is harder than creating the universe, right? Think of the world we're living in now. You have technology, right? You have planes, right? I'm sure the first person that thought about taking flight thought it was impossible, right? But the person probably didn't think jumping into a pool was impossible, because you see the water, right? You can just, whatever the case may be. But now we have people jumping out of planes, right? Bungee jumping out of planes, skydiving, zip lining, right? Things that appear big, I think naturally we think is impossible. So we become selective with the faith. But things that may seem challenging but not that hard, we're like, okay, I can put a little bit of my willpower together to accomplish that. No, bro, you can do it with everything.
You can. That's huge. You can apply faith to everything and create any circumstance, even something as little as jumping in the water, even with it being seen. I talk about the Greek story of fire, the Greek mythology story of fire, about how man found fire, or just thinking about it practically. I mean, imagine somebody first looking at fire. It's hot, it's scary. And then now man used fire over history to light torches, in the house. Like, everything that looks scary has been conquered by man. And that is in itself a testament to the fact that you're capable beyond measure. Because at one point, everything here was something of an idea that someone thought, what if it had, faith the size of a mustard seed moves mountains. That's the type of faith required to have everything we have today. And that's huge. Okay, so everything we've been talking about so far is powerful, but I really want to get into network, man. I know I brought up faith because I know that's a huge thing, and whether people are followers of faith, that I think faith is a huge part of your network. I mean, who do I go to when I really need help? God. Like, I'm not going. There's a certain type of help that you need that I go to God for, that I'm not going to man for. And but I do want to talk into like the network, the people that God's put in our spaces, that we've connected with, that help us achieve and accomplish. Who has been somebody for you? I know throughout life, us growing and connecting and networking, that has really impacted you? Is there someone that you can think of that really impacted you from a mentoring standpoint that helped you build the life that you're building now and progressing throughout the trials and tribulations that you've been through as you've built the life that you're trying to build now?
Man, that's a good question. First and foremost, my mom. Like the resilience definitely comes from my mom. So that work ethic comes from my mom and my father. But in terms of like straight mentorship, the lady that is responsible for me being in Chicago was the principal at the school that I worked at when I graduated. So once I graduated from K-State, I was an assistant teacher with kindergarten. It was at an all-boys school. And the principal there, she had just launched this school. It was an Afrocentric school. She came from Chicago to Kentucky. And, upon her departure, we chopped it up in her office. And she was like, man, she knew like I was just starting this motivational stuff, this self-development stuff. She was like, man, you should move to Chicago. I'm like, I'm thinking O Block. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not moving to Chicago. She's like, nah, like nobody's trying to really hear that motivational stuff out here in Kentucky. Like you need to move where it's a better market. So she did what she did, connected me with some people here, and that's how I got my first job out here teaching. From there, bro, it's been connection after connection after connection. I don't know if you're familiar with Sean Michelle's Homemade Ice Cream. Best ice cream hands down in Chicago. The CEO, the owner, that's like my second pops, Yaya. I love how he moves in a professional sense. I study and peep game. You get what I'm saying? He's always talking to people. He's going to put his business in front of your face, and y'all could be talking about this water bottle. He's going to find some way to segue. So I study things like that, right? But really, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is my greatest example when it comes to networking. And the reason why I say that is he's made friends all over the world by staying true to who he is and taking action behind his ideas. So that's all I really needed, bro. Once I saw that I had potential within myself, right? I just had to create a plan for myself and make my word bond in everything that I said that I was going to do, and always learn from people around me and take advantage of the opportunities that I was in, whatever door or room that I was in. That was all I needed in terms of mentorship. Now, when it comes to networking like Corey and Ian, right? Man, major shout out to them. They really have created a platform for me. We're building something very good, like even with, our show that we have on Tuesdays, right? Learning how to become wealthy. We put a platform together, right? Because we came and connected with each other, having an in-person event where we wanted to just impact people in terms of financial literacy and entrepreneurship. And they exposed me to so many people that I'm doing stuff with. Right? So it's like one person led to the next person, then that person led to the next person. But those are like those immediate people that I still use, immediate in my network. Some people, you may tap in with them time to time, but those are like my immediate, network, right? And people that I look to for mentorship.
That's huge, especially talking about the so-called ripple effect of meeting people, the one connection that helped you get up here to now, going and seeing all the different like people in the city of Chicago that are doing good things. I mean, it's amazing how a ripple effect can happen just by meeting one person. I think now this conversation has been fire, man. I think this has been great. I really do like to end it off talking about the network, because I believe networking, the people you meet, they're like the amplifier on life. Life is a collaborative sport, a collaborative game. It's not a game of, who can get over on who, even though a lot of times in the world it can feel like that.
Wow.
The name of the game is collaboration. How can you help somebody else, serve somebody else, connect with somebody else in a unique, impactful way to help them move forward along their path and their goals, and hopefully make that a super win-win scenario, whoever you connecting with. That's what I try to live by. That's what I try to help people set that example for the people around themselves, and that's what I instill in the young adults that I mentor as well, is creating those win-win scenarios to amplify your results and serve God's people. So that's huge, man. I wanna leave it to you to like really like, if you wanted to leave, let's say, your younger self with one thing, piece of advice, or just something that you feel that the world needs to hear right now that maybe isn't said enough, what would that be to kind of like end it off?
Man, I would say don't be scared. You get what I'm saying? Don't be scared of taking the leap of faith, but don't be afraid of yourself. Bro, I'm happy where I am, but I must admit that I could have been further off a lot sooner if I wouldn't have been so afraid of myself. Man, there's a poem, right? And we heard it on the Carter movie, right? Coach Carter, right? Our deepest fear, right? Our deepest fear. And for the longest, I was scared of my potential. What if I actually can bring into existence everything I ever dreamed? Like, what would that take? And I got scared of it, right? What would it take for me to break this bad habit so I could become a better individual? I was afraid of it. And so for so long, I was like stutter stepping with stuff. I knew what I needed to get together in my life in order for me to become a better person so I could tackle some of my goals a lot quicker, but I was afraid of what it would take. And I was also scared of falling on my face, bro. And it's so easy now to say this as a cliche, fail forward, right? Or, losses are just lessons. We turned it into a cliche, but that's true, but it wasn't real for me. So even though I would know that on one side of my head, on the other side, I was like, I hear myself saying that and then trying to encourage myself, and I hear it in other people, but man, bro, maybe I should just be regular, right? Maybe I should, maybe this pursuit to really make my dreams happen, maybe it just sounds cool in my sleep. It just sounds cool in my dreams. It just sounds cool in my head. Maybe I really don't want to take this path. Psyching myself out of what I really had in store for me because I was so afraid to just take the leap of faith and was so scared of myself. So to those that are watching, man, we only get one life. And so you can either live this life and waste it, or you can live this life to the fullest. Whichever way you choose to live your life, none of us are getting out of here alive. None of us are getting out of here alive. So you might as well choose the life that's more fulfilling. Choose the life where you can leave something behind for you, your seeds, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations behind you, but leave your footprint on the world. And that takes you being courageous. It takes you being brave. It takes, you get what I'm saying, you fighting and facing the demons that lie within you so you can be the best version of yourself, so the world can benefit from what you have that lies deep within yourself. So that's what I would leave to those that are watching. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Take that step because the world is craving and benefiting from what you can offer. So we only do ourselves a disservice when we handicap ourselves. So take that leap of faith, man. Understand after one, it's none. After this one life we live, we not a cat. After this one life we live, that's it. So you might as well just roll the dice and risk it all and see what you can get from it. Because you started with nothing, you're going to leave here with nothing. So you might as well try to reach all the heights that you can and get all that you can in this one life we live, man. Take the risk. Go do it.
I don't even want to say anything on top of that, man. That was powerful. I mean, I love that. That was powerful in itself. I appreciate you having you on, man. This is a blessing. I know this is going to reach and touch some people, so we going to get it out there. Tell people where to follow you at social media wise, how they can connect with you, website, whatever.
Man, absolutely. So on Instagram and TikTok, that's what I'm on the most. Is GTWT official. GTWT stands for my brand, right? So it stands for grind today, why tomorrow. And then on LinkedIn, it's just my first and last name, Zion King. And I don't use, X or Twitter, nothing like that. And then YouTube is GTWT official as well.
Perfect, man. I'm going to link everything in the description anyway, so y'all check them out in the description of this episode. But, yeah, man, appreciate you having you on.
Man.
All right, peace, y'all.
Man, appreciate you.
Yes, sir.